So Dylan, the reason why I wanted to ask initially about some of the historical stuff is because obviously since you moved over to Europe and you were coaching Fnatic, you can potentially give us some insight also into the Fnatic team and some of the things after that. Since when you took over in Fnatic was actually when they just got in. They'd obviously just had Broxah and Caps, and that come in when Nico the Pico infamously was the coach of the team. And back then, people don't remember this because now those players have massive profiles. But back then, these weren't big name players. Like Caps was considered like some crazy coin flip player, even in LCS. A lot of people wondered, would he ever even be a good player? A lot of people were making him out like he was like a very hot and cold player. What was someone like that like in the early days to work with as a coach?
So when I actually first started working with Fnatic, they flew me out to Korea for Fnatic's Korean boot camp between the splits without Reckless there. It was just the 4 players without Reckless, okay? And they had, I think it was Mr. Rallis at the time subbing in.
Okay.
So I knew Jesse, right, before from my time on Immortals. And they fly me out there. And it was just like only me and the team. So I had to run the boot camp basically by myself in Korea. It was like my second time there or something. So I'd already kind of been around the area, where all the teams boot camp. It was my first time meeting all the players. And it was just like, the first impression was honestly hilarious. Like my first scrim set with this team, like we're playing some, I don't think it was like an LCK team, but it was at least like a Korean Challenger team or an LPL team, like a decent team. And Caps is just like passed out on the couch. I have to like wake him up for scrims because he like hasn't slept. He's been playing solo queues since he got to Korea for like 30 hours straight or something crazy. I have to like wake him up and he just like won't wake up. And then I get him into scrims, and first scrim he's just begging me to play Draven mid. This was the introduction to Fnatic. It was like first game he does something like carries alone or something. Second game, can I play Draven here? Can I play Draven here? It's like really OP, really OP. Can I play Draven? So like I'm like I guess okay, you can play Draven. He locks in Draven mid, level 2, flashes under the tower, auto attacks the tower instead of the champion dies, and then just like ints the whole game. And that was my like intro to Fnatic. So it was really crazy. Like it was, Caps was a rookie. He was kind of unformed yet as a player. Broxah was also a rookie. He was very new to competitive play. And they had that kind of play style that they came up with at the end of spring that sort of bandaged a lot of their issues as a team, but allowed a Reckless to really like hard carry the games. So that was the kind of system we ran with through most of the summer split. But it was a really interesting experience. It was really stressful, but ultimately I think we did really well.
So I mean, nowadays everyone knows like how special Caps is.
Yeah.
At what point did it click for you? Like this is a different player.
Almost right away, honestly. Like
really?
You watch this guy play League for 6, 7, 8 games a day, and you just see things every single day. It's just like highlight reel. It's really fun to watch, actually.
I mean, so people nowadays will say stuff like Caps is probably going to be the best Western mid we're ever going to get. Like at what point, like were you like, oh, this is it? Like from the moment you started working with him, like you felt that way, or was it? I would imagine it would come like later down the line with working with him.
Probably scrimming at Worlds that year, I would say. Because we would scrim all the Western teams and all the Chinese teams, and seeing that, I would say. Because there's one thing in Europe, seeing him do really well, but there's another thing when you go international and you see him play against international players, he's playing that well, I'd say. Yeah.
Was it tough then? Because since you were basically one of his earliest real coaches in LCS, was it tough to know with a player like that? Because if you see Caps that exists now, one of the reasons why I think people have a very hard time knowing how much credit in G2 to give to Grabs is pretty much all the players he's got are like fully formed players. They've all become really good. They've been to many different teams. The Caps that you had kind of was a coin flip player. Like he could just throw the whole game, and also you didn't often even necessarily play through his lane, etc. Like when a player like that, the temptation, I'll give the analogy here to what Loco did. If you remember when Loco was the coach of TSM, and there's that famous thing where they told like Wild Turtle, like, just don't flash in because you're misusing your flash. Like you sort of, your flash privileges are taken away. Just don't do it. Stay at the back. Just be an ADC. Like there's a temptation when you have a wild player to do that. Put the reins on him a bit. So did you ever try to do that? Did you know that somehow you had to sort of just let him figure it out? What was the concept in the team?
So with him, never, ever, ever, and even on Schalke this year, whenever I'm coaching, I don't think that holding players back from trying to outplay to being the best player they can be and play crazy and take risks is the right way to really reach the heights of League. That's like a mentality I had with Immortals. That's a mentality we had on Fnatic, absolutely always. And I don't think anyone ever was like shaming Caps for playing aggressive or dying or taking risks. A lot of it was more about how him and Broxah would transition leads. Like I remember at first in Summer Split when we were working with him, he would solo kill the enemy, and then he'd run back to lane and try and solo kill the enemy again, and he'd run back to lane and try and solo kill the enemy again, etc., etc. But like that's not really how League is played. It's like a team game. You need to set up vision, duo roam together with your advantages. You can't just like. I think he knew it was bad, and maybe this was just in scrims because on stage it wasn't as big of an issue. But like it was more playing with the team and playing with jungle and having Broxah and Caps work together. I think was a lot of what at least I worked on with them. I'd like to think I helped them with it. And they kind of needed help from like Soaz and Reckless and just like Joey in the next year, for example, just everyone.
Okay.
One thing I'm really curious about is how Nico the Pico fit in all this, because I've heard publicly from Nico Pico's side, like what he said, and then also somewhat from what Amazing said. Like it was really hard to piece together from Nico the Pico. What he said was he blueprinted the current Fnatic or the 2018 Fnatic roster, where he said we knew we were going to build around Caps and Broxah. We knew they were going to be the future. Like I scouted them and I knew this would be it. And yeah, I guess I'm really curious on what actually happened and how much involvement there was, how much planning there was from someone that actually worked within the org.
So I was only actually with Fnatic after Nico left, Nico Pico. So I've never actually had a conversation with the guy in my life. So unfortunately, I'm not sure. I know that they held tryouts in the off season where they tried out Caps and tried out a bunch of different mids for both the academy team and the main team. And I think the thing was like Caps would just solo kill every single mid. Like it didn't matter who it was, level 2, level 3, they would just die. So it's clear that he was really, really good. And I think all the Fnatic players, and even going into week 1 of LCS, I know most of the players at least knew that this guy had insane talent. So yeah, I'm sure the org knew and that he was going to be the future of the org. Yeah. But
do you think
I don't.
What about for the?
I've got a question. Okay, go on then.
What about for the Broxah side? If Caps side was so obvious.
But this is all like replacing Amazing with Broxah drama or whatever happened. I wasn't a part of it, so I really don't have much insight on it, honestly.
Okay. This is one of the reasons why we'll never have timestamps for this show, because Loco doesn't know how to do like topics in a row. But never mind that. We'll get there eventually. At the moment, it's the free form segment of the show. But a question I had about Caps as well is, do people actually overrate Caps? Because like Loco said there, they don't just say he's the best player or he's the best player in G2 or he's the best Western player. Like even just a year or two into his career, it's all the superlatives come out. He's the best player there's ever going to be. He's the Western faker. It's like they go really far. Is that deserved?
Yeah, probably. I think he's probably the highest skilled Cap kind of like skilled player, I would say, yeah. But he's also played on really good teams, right? Both of his teams, Fnatic and G2, have had actual, I would say, complete rosters, which a lot of very talented players never get the chance, I think, in their career to play in an actual complete roster of 5 like top players. So yeah, it's a bit of both. But yeah, no, I think he deserves the credit he gets.
Because one thing that I think is a bit weird is like now everyone acknowledges he's the best because G2 won MSI and they've looked so amazing since they formed the team. But what was funny was obviously it's pretty famous. North Americans generally don't watch LEC, European LCS, as it used to be called. It's just the wrong hours. They're not as interested. So if everyone had heard in 2018 the hype, like Caps is amazing, Caps is a god, and then they saw him at Worlds, they probably were underwhelmed actually, mate. Like a lot of people think his Worlds performance wasn't that crazy actually. But did you have a different perspective from inside?
Well, first of all, it was complete Arden meta, right? It was like Janna running around buffing an AD carry who's trying to get items and scale to 30 or 40 minutes. And the entire
this is season 7. I'm in season 8.
Oh, season 8 Worlds? Oh, you like last year's Worlds?
Yes.
Yeah. No.
This is where he was supposed to take over the tournament and be the MVP, you know?
Okay, I think there was drafting issues in 2 games against Rookie. It's like best of ones, first of all, in group stage. So drafting issues, 2 games in group stage. He had really bad matchups. That being said, in the second one, he got a lot of resources put towards his game and ended up like kind of carrying. Set against EDG, probably a bit of drafting issues. There's the Yasuo game where he kind of like did poorly against enemy Syndra. Probably a winnable matchup. I think he even solo killed him at one point. Yeah, I think maybe he didn't have like the absolute greatest tournament, but I still thought he played super good. And at least I also see a lot more scrims, so I see a lot more footage from playing at the tournament.
Okay.
I still find he's one of the best players there.
So the perspective that Dora mentioned is exactly me. I didn't watch any. I watched some European LCS, and then I watched the playoffs leading up into Worlds, and then I watched all of Worlds. Just from watching Worlds, it seems like Perkz was a better mid laner than Caps was. Perkz carried his team much harder. Perkz had less around him, and I think if you isolate the Worlds performance only, Perkz was a better mid for 2018 Worlds.
Yeah, he carried his team a lot harder than Caps did to the point they got in Worlds. Absolutely, that's true.